It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
What potentially stands in the way between you and an inheritance? Over the next 2 decades, approximately 75 trillion, that's trillion with a T, will pass from one generation to the next. But who is likely to be the greatest recipient of those dollars? If you don't plan ahead, you likely won't like that answer. That and more on this hour of the Wise Money Show.
That's right. The Great Wealth Transfer sounds like a great movie, like a summer blockbuster. I don't know if they do those anymore, but no, this is potentially good news, but it's really it's a planning opportunity. And there are some hazards, some risks in the way between as money's flowing from one generation to the other that if you're not planning appropriately ahead, you could actually, fall in a ditch or some disastrous issue might come up. We're going to help you navigate those right now. If you have a question for the program, we'd love to hear from you. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. You can search The Wise Money Show. Okay, so the Great Wealth Transfer, let's define that. In the U.S. alone, this is estimated 84 trillion to 124 trillion. So even larger than Kevin than what you shared, but of that, about 72 trillion is likely to pass from directly to heirs, as opposed to a charity or to business partners or whatever. Who comes up with these numbers? I don't know how much we're supposed to believe these numbers, but it's a gazillion dollars, I think is what they're saying, all in the next couple of decades. So somewhere by 2045. So the question is, who stands to receive the bulk of this? And even if you say, not like numerically, but like who or what could potentially receive these dollars? Is it the next generation, the kids, or are there others? And there's actually 4 potential categories or potholes or issues or whatever that actually could stand in the way of these dollars flowing directly from one generation to the next. And they each represent planning opportunities, and we're going to help you with that. But before we do, guys, let's just camp on just for a moment. If you expect to be receiving an inheritance, this is one of the common questions we get. Do you build that into your plan or not?
I personally say no, at least not in your own retirement planning. If you're trying to forecast what do you need to be doing throughout your working career to have the right amount to live out your days when you're no longer working, to assume that there's going to be some external, pool of money that materializes at some point along the way that is outside of your control. Mm-hmm. You might have assumptions and you may even have a high confidence that the money's going to be there, but it's not 100% necessarily.
Yeah.
And to me, it's more about what would it do to you if you did believe that there was money coming to you? Does it cause you to stop doing the things that are within your control and the good habits and the good processes that would allow you to get yourself solid and healthy and strong financially on your own instead of this external extra source?
See, when I look at retirement planning and being or set aside the term retirement for a second and just say financial independence, I don't like planning on the inheritance. Uh-huh. And maybe there's certain instances where it feels more certain, life insurance, whatever, but it's just not for sure, right? And so when you're pursuing retirement or financial independence, I would not plan on it. But from a tax standpoint, if you have awareness, I would say that awareness maybe shouldn't direct your plan, but maybe it should be infused within your plan.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because, we talk about taking a multi-generational tax planning approach. We talked about it on last week's show. If you didn't catch that, make sure that you do. And so an inheritance there and awareness of it could certainly help. And maybe that infuses or that connects to your own beneficiary planning, your own estate planning as well for your dollars. And so, I would say not fully plan on it, but an awareness helps. Now, why not really plan on it? Not fully, because stuff happens. That's the PG version. That's stuff happens. So what could happen? And Josh, we were talking about an analogy to use along the way, and this is I think the state flower for Indiana is a orange cone on the highway or whatever, like the construction cone. Like the state flowers are out and they're blooming right now. Everywhere you go, there's either potholes or there's construction. And so on that journey, that path, you Google mapped it. We've got an inheritance going from one generation to the next generation. It's smooth sailing. No, there could be hazards. There could be construction. There could be potholes. There could be issues that pop up. And what are they? Each not because, I got to be greedy and I got to avoid these potholes. No, to be a good steward and be a good risk manager, right? So each of these present planning opportunities. And the first one, I think two of these will be obvious, two of them not so obvious. And the first one is that could get in the way of an inheritance going directly from one generation to another, or really limit how much is transferred. Long-term care expenses.
Yes, that is for sure an issue. And when you look at risk, you have choices. What do I do with risk? Do I live with the risk or do I transfer the risk? There are ways to transfer the risk of a long-term care stay, whether that's an at-home stay or in a facility stay. And the three easy ones, when you think about big risks, I'm writing a check to an insurance company. Now, I'm no longer on risk, but the insurance company is. So it could be traditional long-term care insurance. That industry has not thrived. That's the easiest way.
And it might be worth mentioning why. And that is because in a large risk transfer and an efficient risk transfer system, you have a lot of people that are buying the insurance, and you have great analysis actuaries looking at, well, how much do people need to pay in? What's the likelihood that, how many people will have claims? What's the cost of those claims? And they just missed the boat completely. Far underestimated how many people would file claims, how expensive those claims would be, and therefore the price needed to be significant, and fewer people then bought the insurance. And yeah, I don't think that thing's not even on life support anymore. Like the long-term care, traditional long-term care policies, if you have one, it's rare. And buying new, just standalone long-term care policies, there's not a lot of people doing that.
And why is that? Because so many people are needing to use the care,
that's what I mean.
And it's expensive. It keeps ramping up. The likelihood that a married couple entering into retirement gets all the way through retirement to their death without needing some sort of long-term care is pretty small.
It's very small.
Or to say it the opposite, it's a high likelihood that you're going to need long-term care. And if we're talking about you yourself, does that potentially erode the inheritance that you want to be able to leave behind to your kids? Or if we're talking about your parents, does it potentially eliminate or dramatically reduce, potentially even catastrophically reduce the amount of money that they're leaving behind at the end of their retirement? And this is one of the reasons why, Mike, you asked the question, should you be counting on an inheritance? Well, this is one of those scenarios where major draining of resources can happen in a short amount of time, especially if you don't have some of those precautions in place like long-term care insurance.
So there's three. So I interrupted you on one, the traditional long-term care insurance. What are the next two?
Well, so when you look at long-term care, just to defend the actuaries, which I never thought I would be in a position of doing, but the long-term care insurance industry is relatively young. It got started in the 1960s, and they're pricing for a probability of an event that may happen. Where if you go to life insurance, the life insurance industry is 440 years old. Wow. The first policy went back to 1583 in England. And when you look at life insurance, there's 100% probability that you will use it. So the way that they're able to price these things is with certainty. And so this is where it has been tricky, but I would encourage you to explore that.
Yeah. And then the other two, and we're going to get into it more, but if you look and say, well, I don't really want to transfer the risk using traditional long-term care, a standalone policy that just covers that. There's hybrid life insurance policies now that are available. If you pass away, there's a death benefit. But if you have a long-term care event and meet the qualifications, unable to do 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living or the cognitive impairment, then you can use that death benefit for care. And then the third is a type of annuity type product, which you give it some flexibility, but it has some benefits, extra benefits if you need to use the dollars for care. Those are 3 ways to help protect this risk. How else should you be managing and managing this risk? We've got that more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern time every Saturday morning, also on podcast at the same time, and also on a couple local radio stations as well at the same time, which is why the content structure the way that it is has segment breaks and so on. It's also long form, which I know on YouTube sometimes is fantastic. That might be your speed. Other times, I actually listened recently to the show at 1.25, mm-hmm. and of the 3 of us, I think I talked the fastest, and I sound a little chipmunky, but I could understand. I could comprehend. So you could do that. You could speed it up.
I got to listen to it at 1.5.
Do you really?
Yeah, we talk way too slow.
Oh, my goodness.
It just hurts me.
So, but there's also next by step videos and shorts and all that stuff right here. All of it, though, designed to give you creative ideas to take a one-plan approach to your finances, strategy, and execution in all 6 areas of your financial life. That's what you need. Most people say you need a hot stock tip. You need to figure out retirement. No. You need infused one plan, strategy, and execution. That's what you need. And you're going to get that right here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications here and everywhere every time we drop new content. If you like the content, and leave questions below as well. We appreciate it. Let's go.
I'm sorry. I did not do a good job of answering your question because
try to do that at 1.5 speed, Kevin.
No, my brain was thinking about the industries and the long-term care industry that started, and there was a time when there was 700,000 long-term care policies sold every year, and I think it's down to 70,000 now. So it's just. It's harder.
That's 70,000 more than what I thought.
And the question is, will a robot be able to take care of me? Because if a robot can lift me out of bed, sit me on the pot, take care of the administrative work when that's done, all the paperwork.
I think
and then get me up, get me dressed, get me to the table, feed me.
Will the robots have will they be warm? Right? Because listen, if it's cold and metal, even if they can, I don't think I'm going to want to do it.
Hey,
but if there's a way to heat up those extremities, then lift me up. Go ahead.
I know that is so funny. Whenever I just don't want my wife to take care of me. That's all I know. Yeah. Because you're mentioning this, will they be warm? Like anytime my wife has helped me with anything medical, if it's in a tube or something else and it's cold, she's like, just take it and apply it. I'm like, honey, warm that up a little bit. That wouldn't sting so much.
All right, here we go. That's very interesting and potentially really leads towards, if you're managing their risk, and because I think there's a large camp of people that are in denial about the risk. Mm-hmm. And then there's a smaller camp that aren't in denial, but I don't know how to manage it. And then there's a very small camp that are managing it. And those that are maybe in denial or don't know how to manage it, the risk or not the risk, but the potential for technology solving some of this, that leads to, maybe a hybrid policy would be the right way to manage it, because there's life insurance just in case.
It's so hard because it's not. I want it to be a simple answer. It's just not a simple answer.
Yeah.
What are my sources of income going to be?
Right.
How
reliable are those sources of income?
If you look at the curve, on this side of the curve, I don't need it. Because I don't have anything to protect. And then there's a big swath of people that have assets to protect and don't want to impoverish the community spouse in the event that I go into a home. On the far side of that, there are people that either have income sources that will take care of a long-term care stay, or They have assets that will take care of it,
Yeah.
and they're not worried about depleting those assets. But
They're self-insured, essentially.
it was interesting because, Mike, when we were in Dallas and we were talking about,
We're gonna bring it up.
well, why don't we do that on the show?
Yeah. 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 So, all right, here we go. And then hopefully we're getting into the second one as well. I mean, I'm assuming this will take most of this segment, but hopefully we're getting into the second detour as well. All right. Probably the biggest obstacle standing between you leaving an inheritance to the next generation, or maybe you saying, well, I'm going to get an inheritance from the prior generation, is long-term care expenses. The need for someone to help care for your daily needs and the expense that causes. Are you managing this risk? And then also, what else stands in the way of those inheritance dollars? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search The Wise Money Show. We're talking about the detours or the potholes or the hazards between dollars flowing from one generation to the next. We've got the great wealth transfer is underway, $75 trillion approximately passing from one generation to their heirs. I don't think the majority of that $75 trillion is making it to the heirs. I think there is going to be a large amount that's going to get caught up in one of these detours or one of these potholes. The first one being long-term care expenses. If you want to manage this risk, you could get standalone long-term care insurance. And I would say if you're managing this risk, you have to evaluate that, right? Mm-hmm. You can't be, objective, or you can't be subjective. You got to be objective and look and, well, what are the ways to manage it? But life insurance with a long-term care feature, so a hybrid policy, that's another way of managing it. And then potentially as some sort of annuity as well that also has some long-term care benefits. All of this because health insurance doesn't cover long-term care expenses. It can cover up to a certain number of days if you have a hospital stay beforehand that meets certain criteria. Otherwise, it really doesn't cover it all. And Kevin, what's the cost? Just ballpark. We were at a national conference where people were talking about the cost of assisted living or nursing home. And I was reminded how much I love living in South Bend.
Yeah.
Because some of the numbers they were throwing out there were just significant. So how much?
Well, my mind, it has old numbers in it because of what it used to be. And it used to be, 6,000 to 8,000 a month. Well, it's not anymore. It's 12,000 to 14,000.
See, and I would have said 10 to
I would
12.
have guessed 10 also.
And there are people there saying, oh, it's 15. It's 15 to 20 a month. And guys, yeah, by the way, that's per month for assisted living, nursing home sort of thing. I don't know, cut the number in half for home health care, but even that is tricky because for home health care, is that 24-hour care? Is it 8 hours? Oftentimes, so listen, you're going to want to stay in your house for as long as possible, and you don't want a stranger in there for too much time. So it typically, there's gradations to this. Mm-hmm. But when you need around-the-clock care, that's when home health care can get almost as expensive as assisted living and so on. And then you add memory care on top of that, it gets even more expensive. So managing this risk, that can put Josh, you've said before, when you're looking at your 5-factor retirement plan, this risk alone has a potential to put a hole in the boat below the waterline.
That's exactly right, because you have certain assumptions about what you think you're going to be spending in retirement. And it's usually when the sun is shining and the birds are chirping and life is good, it's all sunshine and roses. But what about when life rocks your boat, or when your health starts to fail and you need some extensive care of some kind, either skilled care or more custodial care? Either one is going to be expensive. And you could get caught up in the debate or playing the odds or checking the statistics on what are the chances that will happen to me. Is it likely that I'm going to need this care, or will I not? And I think it's the wrong question. I think a better question is to say, if I do need the care, which of my assets am I willing to spend down to make sure that I am getting the care that I need? And when you start to recognize that, man, some of your retirement assets could be depleted for something you don't even want to be spending money on. Let's be clear about that, right?
I'm glad you're going there. Yeah.
This is not the game plan. This is not plan A that you had envisioned for yourself. But what portion of it are you willing to spend down, and what does it do to your other spouse? What does it do to the inheritance that you wanted to leave behind? And if you're unwilling to put all of the resources or a significant portion at risk, then you have to be having a conversation with your certified financial planner about other ways to manage the risk, and that is getting into more formal protection quite often.
Yeah, and I would ask the question, so you're talking about someone who's in denial, saying, okay, let's look at your asset list and tell me which one of these you want to sell or liquidate in order to cover that. But before you ask that question, this will get you out of the river in Egypt, is, hey, which one of my children is going to care for me? Because a lot of times folks will think, hey, my children will care for me. And that is a lovely thought, and that gives you some warm feelings, thinking, yeah, my children want to care for me. There's a difference between caring for someone and taking care of someone. Caring for someone is, I drive by to make sure the mail isn't piling up in Dad's mailbox, or the guy that's supposed to be mowing the lawn is actually mowing the lawn. That is caring for. Taking care of is showing up there in the morning and getting Dad going, making sure everything's working, and getting him to his doctor's appointments.
Taking the verbal abuse, like if we're being real, taking the verbal abuse, that's caring for someone. Doing the showering and the bathing, and
I guess
it's hard. That's hard stuff. Like, and not to get real, but if you haven't been through that, taking care of someone often involves some really challenging things and can really wear on you. And going back to your point, Josh, sometimes, and we're talking about great wealth transfer, we're talking about $75 trillion. So you might say, I'm self-insured. We've got enough resources. We've got I have seen people don't love to spend money on long-term care. Not that they will go cheap and say, well, you need the care and we want the best for you, but listen, we're just not going to spend the money on it. But there is something where it's you just don't want to fork over those dollars. And if you've got the insurance in place or have some protection in place, you're much more willing to say, let's use the insurance and let's get the care that you need versus, well, we're going to add this expense. And so have that play into the decision as you're talking to your certified financial planner and managing this. Now, that's one detour. Long-term care insurance flows really right into the next one. And I think this potentially could be the biggest recipient of the Great Wealth Transfer, and that is the IRS, taxes. Now, if we just connect these, and they don't need to be connected, but think about this. If you've got a lot of wealth that you've built up in tax shelters, pre-tax, and now you're needing to take out even more to pay for assisted living, home health care, nursing home, and so that's causing you to withdraw even more. Well, now your income's going to be even more, and you're going to have even more taxes. For example, just had a couple that we were serving, and he was, I think it was $12,000. This is memory care, $12,000 locally per month for the facility that they were in. Well, their lifestyle and the retirement plan we were projecting, they were going to spend $8,000 a month total. Well, when she got sick, it was maybe half of that for his spending plus the $12,000 for long-term care. Add that up, that's coming out of the IRA. How much, that pushes them into a higher tax bracket. That pushes them into IRMA. I mean, the amount of tax was significant on that. And so, yeah, the IRS could stand to receive a significant amount of the inheritance dollars.
And let's be clear about that, because a lot of people hear that and say, okay, I'm leaving an inheritance behind. Is the IRS going to intercept it because of something like an estate tax? And that has been a very real deal in the past. It's been a very real concern that you had to do very careful estate planning around to avoid a tax on the inheritance itself. Most people don't have an estate large enough to be subject to that federal estate tax anymore. You got to be north of $15 million roughly per spouse.
Yeah.
And so, again, that's not the majority of Americans out there. What you are more likely to encounter is that there is an IOU to the government attached to the dollars that you're leaving behind if they are inside of a variety of tax shelters. If you're leaving behind an annuity, if you're leaving behind an IRA or a 401k. That's money that hasn't been fully taxed during your lifetime, and it means the recipients are going to pay the tax during their lifetime instead. And it could be, especially if they don't play the game well, if they're not careful in their planning, they could pay a substantial amount of that in the form of income taxes that you never paid. They pay it instead.
So what are some ways that you can manage this? Because each of these potential potholes or detours or issues from dollars transitioning smoothly from one generation to the next, they all present planning opportunities. And certainly the IRS one, it presents a big planning opportunity in the way of multi-generational tax planning. What are some of the strategies that you can implement to avoid this big risk? We've got that coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Okay, so we're going into tax.
Third segment. Yep.
Okay.
So tax planning strategies to make it less taxing to leave an inheritance.
I never thought of taking the verbal abuse as taking care of someone, but that kind of comes with the package.
Yeah, it can.
And I guess I just take care of you guys. I mean, if I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I think this is I'm talking out of school here. Whether it's old age or connected to cognitive impairment, but
Well,
mean. Like, you can be
mean.
very insulting, very
right.
mean, very angry.
Right. So it's almost like people that drink, and there's the happy drunk and the angry drunk, and there are people that have dementia or cognitive impairment. There are the folks that are really happy and the folks that are angry. Yeah. I remember being with Ryan Fair in someone's kitchen. We're talking to mother and daughter, and Dad had dementia, and he was not in the room. And then he finally made his way to the room and started screaming.
Yeah.
Wow!
Like, what in the world are these guys doing here?
Yeah. The same situation with my father-in-law. A lot of episodes of just, what? Where is? And he's, I would say, very calm and gentle person. And not when he had.
Yeah, it's dementia. So hard because the dementia, the cognitive impairment, kind of eats that person. Like, that person is gone.
I was going to point out also, it may not be anger or aggressiveness. It could just be them not remembering you. Like, even that is hard, right? Well, Mom, it's me, your son, and no, there's no memory there. Like that's awful. Heartbreaking too.
All of those, like, if you are just catching up, like, that's reasons to not just believe the easy answer of, well, instead of paying for protection or paying for care, let's take care of Mom. Let's take care of Dad. Someone will step up and do it. There's a whole lot of reasons where that might seem like a good idea, and then when you get into it, you realize this can't work. So, all right, here we go. Third segment. All right. More and more these days, planning for your taxes stretches beyond just planning today and where you stand. What is your tax picture looking like this year? It needs to be multi-year and maybe even multi-stage, but then multi-generational. And especially as you think about potentially leaving an inheritance or receiving one, the IRS potentially stands as one of the biggest recipients of those dollars. And there's careful tax planning that you can do to help navigate that and avoid that reality. We're helping with that right now. This is Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, just search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there, and rate the program there as well. That's helpful feedback for us. We appreciate that. We're talking about potential detours or hazards along the way from transitioning an inheritance from one generation to another. Whether you expect, hey, I will probably receive an inheritance at some point, Or if you plan to leave one, likely you want as much of those dollars to pass directly to that next generation. The problem is there are hazards in the way. Long-term care expenses. That's a big one. How are you navigating that? What protections do you have in place? What's your risk transfer strategy there? But the second is the IRS. Whether that is estate taxes, unlikely, because of the estate tax exemption, but really income taxes. So what could you be doing along the way to manage this potential risk? Well, 10-year rule we talked about last time. I think this is a big reason to consider tax diversification, or I'll just be more blunt and say making sure that some of your resources are saved up in a Roth. Now, Kevin, you were just doing a case class recently with the team, and you were sort of breaking down the cash flow comparison between contributing on the way in of contributing pre-tax versus Roth.
Yes.
It's no comparison.
No.
Right? The cash flow, go ahead.
No, it's 100% more. I mean, we're working with some folks in their 40s, and if you can put 24,500, and hang with me because we don't like to do math or numbers on the radio, but 24.5 is what I can put in if I'm younger than 50.
To your 401k.
To my 401k. If I do it pre-tax, I have 24,500 of a tax deduction.
Yep.
So really, it costs me cash flow wise about $17,000.
Yeah, because you're getting the 7,000 approximately, depending on tax rates and so on, deduction. So get that.
Yep. So we were in the 28 and change. So almost 29 is for this particular client. So we looked at Roth. What does it cost for Roth? And the answer immediately, folks were like, well, it costs $24,500 because I'm doing after tax. No, what did I have to make to end up with $24,500 in my pocket to put into the plan? I know it's via payroll deduction, but what did I have to make? I needed to make $34,000. So the difference between putting pre-tax money versus after-tax money into the Roth is 17 versus 34. It's 100% more money cash flow wise out of my pocket on the way in.
Yep.
Now that does not deal with the on the way out program, which is what you're getting to kind of right now.
And that's it. But that analysis on the way in is extremely important. This is a complicated decision, and you've got to look at your entire financial life and your long term when you're making that determination. And yet, despite that cash flow change, having tax diversification and the more dollars that you have built up in the Roth side of the ledger, those dollars will be transferred and inherited by the next generation tax-free. Mm-hmm. Yes, they've got to withdraw the dollars within 10 years. Great. But as they withdraw them, it'll be tax-free.
Yeah. And there could be other assets that also pass tax-free. You know, there are some folks that try to make a decision on do we sell the family farm during our lifetime, or do we let the kids or grandkids inherit it, knowing that whatever capital gain has built up over the decades that we've owned it, you know, it's worth more today than what we bought it for or what we inherited it at. And if we were to sell, we would pay a significant tax, a capital gain tax on the difference, on that profit, so to speak. And that gets wiped out. If your kids inherit it from you as farmland, they could then sell it during their lifetime and liquidate an asset that's been in the family for a long time without it costing a significant amount of income taxes.
Because of the step up in cost basis. Same would happen with your house, and yet at the same time, the house or your primary residence, this one also gets a little bit tricky because if mom and dad have lived there for 2 out of the last 5 years, and then they need to live in assisted living or change their living arrangements, and they think, well, I'm just going to give you the house now. Well, they give you their cost basis. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And which means when they pass away, there's no step up in cost basis. And so be aware of that. But yeah, when you look at the three different categories of assets that you could, or I don't know what category is not the right word, but tax nature of assets that you could inherit, pre-tax retirement accounts, likely you're going to need to navigate the taxes on that. Roth accounts can be inherited tax-free. And then if done well, non-tax sheltered accounts should be inherited tax-free also. Mm-hmm. So being aware of that and being intentional about, well, where do you stand and how are you building up wealth and your tax diversification, that can help you navigate this as well. Lastly, understanding the rules. I cannot tell you, it's probably once a year I hear from a friend of a friend, someone who says, hey, what can my friend do? They inherited an IRA from their dad, they cashed it all in, and then they just did their taxes, and they realize they owe 50 grand in tax. Can they put it back? No. Like being aware of those rules before you make big decisions, that will also help you navigate this as well. Okay, permission to get a little controversial here. If you're thinking about what are the potential detours where dollars could flow between one generation and another, I think there is, and I know I don't think this just my own sense, but just in discussions with clients and real raw discussions about risk, not accusations, just potential risks. A third potential detour is that the dollars from one generation go to a completely different family. Mm-hmm. And I might not have said that well, but the risk is the second marriage or the late marriage. Not the let's not put the folks that are maybe doing it for manipulation or like trying to take advantage of elder. Let's just assume nope, it's all love. It's all love. But I can just tell you the number of people who've said, well, if I pass away early, I don't want my spouse to live out their retirement alone. I wouldn't want them to. And the odds are they'll probably get in a relationship with someone at some point. But I don't want our kids to not inherit these dollars. I don't want that to mean that the dollars won't flow to our kids. This is a risk that you've got to manage.
It absolutely is. And in many states, there are even rules that can force some dollars to go to the second spouse instead of to the kids. And so careful planning is important. And don't hear us saying that a second marriage is a bad idea.
Right.
It may be appropriate. It may be a very natural plan. The question here is, well, what happens with the finances when there's now a blended family or, kids from the first marriage originally would have been the next in line to inherit whatever's left at the end of your lifetime. But now you have a second spouse that you also love and care for. And so this is where your estate planning and, the term prenuptial agreement sometimes gets a bad rap. We think of it in Hollywood terms of, well, if my spouse leaves me or cheats on me or whatever, I got to have an ironclad prenup so that they don't, take all my money or whatever. That's not the point here. The point is for you and your second spouse to agree ahead of time, how do I want my kids to be cared for if I were to pass away while you're still alive as my second spouse? How do I make sure that you're cared for as well? Yeah. And this doesn't just happen by default. And to have no plan at all is just asking for trouble. And this is where the horror stories do come in, where, mom or dad get remarried after losing their first spouse. All the money goes to that second spouse. And then they're leaving it to their own kids or getting remarried again. And before you know it, money that you had intended, you'd sacrificed and planned for your kids or grandkids is in some other family's hands and control.
You mentioned Hollywood. Tommy Boy? Is this the plot of Tommy Boy, I think? But right, like not having a plan is, I think that is the most likely scenario because, this is so difficult and there's emotions and I don't know what to do. I can't figure this out. We'll just assume everything's going to be fine. Yeah, that is where the horror stories come in and we've got them. I mean, we could share them. We might hear in the next segment, but the point is recognizing this as a risk and then figuring out, well, how do we figure it out? What's the right estate plan, beneficiary makeup? Do we add life insurance? Those sorts of things. So we've got more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. I wish I'd have had that epiphany about Tommy Boy before we got into it, because I would have made reference
told the story.
To it. So what a cast!
You identified what generation you're from.
So you got David Spade, Chris Farley, of course. Mm-hmm. You've got
was Rob Lowe and
Rob Lowe. That's Dan Aykroyd.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So yeah, that group of SNL, they carried their friends with them. And so, yeah, that's good.
Classic.
All right, so a little bit more on that one, and then we'll wrap it up with gifts. So, fourth segment. Here we go. Kevin, not to keep going on this, but would you want to mention just a way or two that you could manage the second marriage? Like,
Yes.
Because you've gone through that, and obviously helped clients as well. But life insurance, or you set a plan, and then after 10 years, the plan changes because you're now, whatever. So just a couple points on that. Okay, and then we'll transition. Here we go. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show, as well as a lot of other content, over 2,000 videos on the Wise Money YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search The Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there. Turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. We've got a lot of videos, typically 6+ shorts every single week, all designed to help you take your next wise step in your financial life, but from a one-plan approach, strategy and execution. That's what you need. Looking at all 6 areas of your financial life, what's the right strategy that brings together these potentially competing goals all to one goal that is unified and working together, and then what's the right implementation to get that taken care of in your financial life. That's what you need. Go to YouTube, search The Wise Money Show, and leave comments there, questions there as well for the show. We appreciate it. We're talking about the great wealth transfer, and it really I would say not necessarily a novel idea, but the reality that not all of those transfers are going to be inherited sort of like dollar for dollar. There's going to be detours along the way, or potholes where those dollars could get caught. Long-term care expenses could be one of them. Dollars going to the IRS without careful planning, right, is another. A third could be maybe controversial, and this is not saying this is a bad idea. It could be a fantastic idea. You've got to plan around it from a financial standpoint, and that is a blended family, a second marriage, or a late marriage. Kevin, what are some of the ways that that individuals can navigate this and plan for it?
Yeah, well, it needs to be planned for, and this is why it can be really super helpful to have a certified financial planner in your life, because these conversations, especially when there's this sudden rush of romance and love where there was just torment and pain before. I saw it with my dad, and he was terribly miserable for 5 years. His children could not fill the void that my mother left. And so he found a woman.
Yeah.
And he was in love. But we did talk about it. And he said, "What should I do?" And I've seen, to me, the first case that this whole prenup idea made sense was with the family farm. And so you see, all right, the family farm is not going to the next spouse or the next spouse's children. It's going to stay in this family. And so there's a prenup. I'm like, oh, that makes some sense. And so my dad was asking me what we should do. And I said, well, I would feel bad if this day after you got married, if you died, if Donna got everything that you and Mom worked for. And so it did make sense at the time to say, hey, there's a prenup, and this is where your assets go. This is where Donna's assets go. But over time, what happens is they are married, happily married, and there's a time where you say, hey, you guys have been married for 20 years, Dad. Your responsibility is to take care of Donna. Like, we don't need the money. But along the way, the nice thing was there was a transition point where Dad had some life insurance because he had a pension.
Yeah.
And he did a pension maximization strategy. And this is where permanent life insurance, and I know permanent life insurance gets a bad rap, it's a tool.
Yeah.
So do not go to your toolbox and curse the tools. Figure out what the job is. But this is the case to say, hey, if I had some permanent life insurance, I could make my spouse the beneficiary of this.
Yeah.
And now I've also seen it where someone with the kind of asymmetrical wealth, one party says, hey, listen, my new spouse, is going to get $100,000 a year from my stuff until they die, and they're going to get access, a life estate in the house.
Yep.
And so you just do it objectively. And it's hard because, especially going into it, you don't want to think in terms of, well, what happens if this marriage doesn't work, or what happens if someone dies? But this is where you probably don't want the next spouse's spouse or the next spouse's children to be the beneficiaries of what this side of the family brought to the table.
There is no easy button on this, and yet there are options and there are ways to strategize around it. This is, we're always going to tell you to be working with a certified financial planner that's looking at all areas of your financial life, and they're going to work with specialists or come up with creative ideas to help you navigate the potentially seemingly unsolvable problems, right? And so this certainly seems like one of them. Now, the fourth detour where dollars may not pass directly from one generation to the other is they actually don't become inheritance dollars at all. That's where I was joking, like, how do they even come up with $72 trillion? How do they know? We don't know how many of those dollars, before they pass to the next generation over the next 20 years, will be gifted as well. That's the fourth detour, and there's nothing negative about this one either, but just an awareness. And the interesting thing when you think about gifting is, you might say, well, if it's gifted versus inherited, who cares? I'm assuming, based on trends, gifts are likely to go and skip a generation with unaffordability of, or affordability issues with houses and vehicles and getting started financially. I could just see more of the greatest generation and the boomer generation saying, we want to help our grandkids with college. Mm-hmm. We want to help our grandkids get a reliable vehicle. We want to help our grandkids be able to buy a home. We're going to help with their down payment. And that maybe, that's not a controversial thing. That's not an issue. However, I think it could be more of a trend and a reality. Dollars could be gifted more as opposed to inherited.
Well, this is one of the strategies to protect against the other detours also, right? If you're worried about long-term care eroding some of the money that you want to get to that next generation or that third generation, or a second spouse, the IRS, like all these potential detractors from what you're trying to achieve with your leftover dollars at the end of your life, giving it during your lifetime helps to ensure that it got to the intended recipient, right? Mm-hmm. And it's happening at a time when you're around to observe the blessing that it creates as well. So take the 529 plan as an example. This is a place where many grandparents will gift money into a 529 plan for their grandkids' education. In a way, you're helping two generations, because not only does the student benefit from having more resources when they get out to that secondary education and everything, but also it takes a little bit of the burden off of your kids, the parents of the student as well. It's a supplement to them, or maybe it's funding even more than what the parents need to. But the point is, you're getting that gift out of your estate, out of your hands, and into a place where it is designated for education purposes. You're not just giving money just to give it at that point. Yeah. And it can carry with it many of the wishes and the intentions that you had without fear that one of these other detours steps in and detracts from it.
And there's a couple creative new tax laws around this as well. Again, it'd be most likely skipping a generation, but 529 plans, making a contribution there, could help the current owners with some of their tax planning, if there's a tax credit or tax benefit for that. But then now with the rule that these dollars from the Roth, leftover dollars in the 529 plan can be transferred to the Roth. Oh my goodness. Now we're talking about not just a transition from one generation to another, but then tax efficient growth for a full generation after that. That's significant. And then same thing, not to be outdone by the 529 plan, the 530 account, the 530A account is also a way that you can get dollars transition from one generation to the next, really skipping one, because they've got to be, in order to fund a 530A account, the child needs to be younger than 18. And so, but then you can contribute up to $5,000. You don't get a tax benefit for doing that, but there's tax efficient growth on that. And those dollars, once we know all the rules, potentially could be converted over to a Roth IRA. And so giving, that's not a negative thing. And yet also a reason why, dollars might not flow from an inheritance like directly from one generation to the next. There might be detours along the way. Let's wrap this all together, guys. I mean, there's when we started the show by saying, if you expect to receive an inheritance, I wouldn't put it as part of your plan. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean you don't plan around passing money from one generation to another. There are tons of risks that you need to navigate. Mm-hmm. There's tons of proactive strategies that you could implement thinking multi-generationally with your planning.
Yeah. Is the next steward identified, and is the next steward prepared?
That's right.
And who should pay the taxes?
Yeah. And I mean, so all of that connects back to having a comprehensive financial plan, one plan, working with a certified financial planner who's helping you navigate all of that. So, of course, we're going to leave you with that as your next step to be prepared. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Korhorn, all of us at KFG, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.